Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson, Karbley, and Ricky Raines. Coming to you guys on a Wednesday night, live on both YouTube and X. We appreciate everyone tuning in this evening. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? A little rested up from the bye. No football last week. I'll be honest, it kind of sucked not watching the Panthers on Sunday, but of course I watched Red Zone all day long. How are you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, that part was nice. It was kind of stress-free, just watching other teams play competent football across the league for the most part. I actually worked on Sunday because it was the one Sunday out of the year, out of the football season, that I agree to work because it's the bye week and the Panthers aren't playing. So got a lot of work done that day, so that was good. But yeah, I'm rested and ready to watch football this weekend.
Yeah, Sunday was day 2 of Christmas lights install for me. It's a 48-hour deal here. I try to get my Clark Griswold on, man. I'm trying to make astronauts see my shit from space. So, I mean, I was dedicated to the cause, but I was also looking forward to being able to use my Sunday ticket to actually watch, 10 games at a time. And the first attempt of putting up the multi-view for the Sunday ticket, it didn't work. So I was watching the Ravens Steelers game from the large window outside while I was hanging upside down from a ladder like an idiot. So yeah, I'm actually very excited that the Panthers are back so that I don't have, a honey-do list anymore on Sundays. And I'm happy to be here and talk some Panthers football with the homies.
Funny you mentioned that. Saturday I spent taking down our Halloween decorations and then proceeded to put up Christmas shit outside, and that took literally all day. So yep. I feel you on that one. Well, gentlemen, what are we drinking tonight? Anything special? I tell you what, I do not have wine this week. I'm finally recovered from that wine escapade last week. But what do you guys got? What are you drinking?
Yeah, so I'm rolling again with the black lager I drank last week. I really liked it, so I wanted that again. The one from Germany. Still celebrating. But right now I'm drinking a different beer. It's called Never Ending Sky. It's from Dissolver Brewery in Asheville. It is an American Helles lager. I believe that's how you say that. It's really good, actually. I've never had one of this style. And I thought the name was appropriate because Never Ending Sky. I was like, how can I connect that to the Panthers? I feel like the Never Ending Sky fall of the Carolina Panthers feels like it might be coming to an end, and we might be bouncing back up towards some progress being made, and that the skyfall may be done, hopefully. So I felt like that was appropriate.
Ricky, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't have anything cool this time, man. But I have a good beer, but I didn't get anything specific. I've got my standard for this season. It's from Highland Brewery. This is called Cold Mountain. It's their winter spiced ale. This beer, funny thing is, it used to be like a thing of almost like folklore, right? Is like there was Twitter pages called like Is Cold Mountain There, where you could track the deliveries of this stuff, and people would like camp out for hours trying to get this stuff. And for the last like 5 or 6 years, I don't know if it's still the same or not, man, but I've just kind of felt like ass first into this beer every year for the past almost half a decade. I'm at Fresh Market getting food, and they've just got a giant pallet of it sitting somewhere. So I go and I grab 4 6-packs and I save it up for the winter season, man. Delicious little 5.6% winter ale. And also, I want to pose it to the chat, man. If you guys want me to pay a penance for picking the New York Giants over the Carolina Panthers in our Germany international game like an asshole, I never should have done that. I'm sorry, Carolina fans and Panthers. But also, I ruined the parlay on tap also. So I had a really rough episode a couple of weeks ago. So if you guys want me to try to make amends, go ahead and vote it out there. And I've got a High Life poured into this Panthers German-style Pilsner mug that I will chug if people deem me to need to do that.
I think it's funny because we've all chosen like darker, like Christmas spiced beers. We're all in the Christmas spirit already. I did the same. I went with the Sam Adams Winter Lager. I love a lot of what Sam Adams produces. I think they produce a lot of good beer. So I went with this one. It's also 5.6% as well. I don't know if I've ever had the one that that's from Asheville, right, Ricky? Is that? Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever had that one.
It's really good, man.
So I might have to dabble with that one next week. But yeah, that's what I'm drinking, and I just want to let folks know, if you're tuning in for the first time, we do have a super chat. I'm not going to forget about it this week. If you're in the YouTube section, if you're watching us from YouTube, there's a little money symbol in the chat. And if you are so gracious and want to send us some money, it'll go, providing us better equipment. I know at some point I'm going to need to upgrade to what Ricky's got. I know Bryson's got a mic too. I had one. It didn't sound so great. So at some point I need to invest in one of those, but it helps us produce quality content, better content for you guys. So that's the super chat. Just wanted to mention that off the top. Carter, appreciate you. You're a regular. I see you already in the chat, so I do appreciate that.
What up, Carter?
So let's talk. We're going to start with, something that created waves surrounding the Panthers. I feel like even when they have a bye, they can't get away from the headlines. So, and for all the wrong reasons, of course. So if you haven't seen by now, Cam Newton went on his podcast, I think it was last week, and had talked about how he was a little disappointed that he was not invited to Germany, never knew of the opportunity. Talked about how his picture is really not up at Bank of America Stadium, and it came to light when his son mentioned it to him, which is honestly really sad. And he said he basically said he felt erased by the Panthers franchise. So, Bryson, I'll start with you on this because I know Cam. Well, I mean, Cam is near and dear to all of our hearts, but I know, hands down is your favorite player of all time for this franchise. When you heard it, what did you think of the comments? Surprised at all? Where are you at with this?
I think it was interesting to get a peek behind the curtain into the relationship with Cam Newton and I would assume David Tepper and the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you said it. Cam Newton is my favorite player to ever wear the jersey in Charlotte, North Carolina. He changed the culture for Carolina. The minute he stepped on the field, and we all know the accolades that he brought to this team when he was playing with us. Unfortunately, after he left, things went a little downhill, and we're kind of still recovering from that. But I think the excuse that Cam provided us, that they provided Cam, and to them not necessarily knowing if he was officially retired yet, and that's why they didn't have his picture up, and celebrating him and inviting him on trips is absolutely ridiculous. Cam gave us an understanding is like, I'm never going to officially retire. I just don't have that in me. Like, I'm not playing anymore. I'm done playing, but I'm not going to officially retire. And, he's on First Take. Like, this guy isn't coming back into the league and playing quarterback, playing any position in the NFL, and you can attribute a lot of that early into his career to the mismanagement of him in Carolina, with the medical staff here, the coaching staff, up to the GM front office, and it sucks because if he weren't to get injured and manage better, he still might be the quarterback in Carolina right now, and this is a completely different conversation we're having. So I think to erase, in my opinion, hands down the most important player in franchise history, and not celebrate him, it really tells me more about this franchise, the owner, than a lot of things he's done. They even brought him back. I mean, I remember watching the game at your house, Curtis, his I'm back game in Arizona a couple years ago, and that was like some of the best feelings I've had surrounding the Carolina Panthers in a long time. And they win that game in Arizona, and I was feeling so good. I went to the next home game. I believe it was versus the Commanders or the football team, whatever their name was at the time. And unfortunately didn't get the win that day because of Dante Jackson, who was talking shit about the Carolina Panthers a couple days ago. Ron Rivera knew to pick on him the whole game. So, I think I share a lot of sentiment with other fans that are in North Carolina and South Carolina and across the country that are Panthers fans. And, this is a player that is very important to this franchise and fans across the country. And we want him to be celebrated. We want him to be involved at the level that Steve Smith is involved, that Julius Peppers and Jonathon Stewart are involved with this franchise because of how much he meant to us and how much he meant to this team and how much he meant to this city. I mean, he said it himself. He gave everything to the city. And for them to act like he doesn't exist, I think is just unacceptable. And it's frankly disgusting. So I'm hoping that, David Tepper can put his pride aside. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping and that they can rekindle this relationship, because the importance of Cam Newton in Charlotte, North Carolina is just, words can't put it into how much he means to the city and, for the franchise moving forward, and showing that, we are on the right track. I talked about the sky falling, and, this would be another step in the right direction of, okay, maybe this franchise is competent, or they're gearing towards competence then from a level of complete dysfunction that's been a laughingstock across the NFL for years. So everybody knows I love Cam Newton. Really brought me so much joy throughout my early 20s. And I hated to see him go. I hated how it ended in Carolina, but it's time to make it right. And it's time to get him involved, because he wants to be. I mean, judging from the podcast he dropped, he's just waiting for them to ask, and he's going to be involved. So I think the fans would be extremely excited about that. And he even mentioned a business proposal that he had, like kind of doing like the podcast kind of thing with the Panthers, and then turning it down, things like that. Like, that's going to get a fan base that hasn't had a lot to cheer for excited to have Cam Newton back in Carolina and doing things like that with the team. So I'll leave it there. Just another disappointment that I've had with this organization over the past 5 to 6 years.
Ricky, what was your take when you first saw that clip?
Yeah, it was well said by Bryson there. His reasoning for feeling the way that he does. You know what? Honestly, though, man, my very first take on it, like my initial just gut feeling when I heard him talking about it, was I don't know anything about it. It's hard for me to form a really like hard line opinion, because I don't know where the issue is. Like I really don't. He himself says I don't have beef with David Tepper. I don't have beef with people inside that building, right? David Tepper, apparently, if you go back and you look at kind of like the articles and the pieces and the opinion pieces when Cam Newton was brought back here to Carolina that Bryson was talking about, David Tepper was involved in that decision and was for it. He wanted it. He wanted to embrace Cam Newton back here in Carolina. He understood what Cam Newton meant to this franchise here in Carolina. I think that there's another thing that Bryson spoke to at the very end of this that is really the thing that I think illuminates this issue for the large scale that it is right now. And I think it's because we have nothing to cheer for on the football field. And I think that if we weren't constantly missing on the succession plan for Cam Newton, right? If we weren't constantly talking about how we haven't had a quarterback since Cam Newton, and Cam Newton hasn't played for us for years, and we can't find anyone that can play that position at a high level enough to feel decent about watching our football team play. And then when we draft that guy in the first overall pick, or we draft a guy that we hope is going to turn into that player, the first overall pick, it's just turmoil around him. And unfortunately, that timeline directly coincides with David Tepper being the owner. So while I don't think that he may be the like sole reason for this animosity or erasure, and I don't know, man, that it's a concerted effort to erase him from the Carolina Panthers history and from the building. I don't know that. And so I don't want to just assume that that's what it is. But one thing I do feel very strongly about it, it shows how out of touch David Tepper is with what the fan base, who is the consumer, who is the driving monetary factor. Now, look, the NFL makes tons of money. They don't need fans to make money. But teams that don't have good fans and don't have the support and the viewership and the money being spent, the season tickets, all of those things, they tend to have to relocate or do something different because it's not working at their location. So he's out of touch with what the people who should matter just as much as anybody feel about this franchise. This isn't something where you're saying Cam Newton needs to be the next head coach of the Panthers, right? Like, we're not sitting here saying we got to give him the keys of the kingdom. No, but what you're saying is this dude meant the world to an entire, like, booming age of Panthers fans. Like, we really went from a franchise that no one even really knew about to a franchise that everyone watched play because of Cam Newton. We didn't have that with, I love Steve Smith. I love Luke Kuechly. I love Julius Peppers. Nobody was tuning into our games to watch those players specifically. They enjoyed watching those players, but they weren't drawing the giant crowds. Cam Newton didn't just draw the crowd, man. He was the main attraction. Like, he was where you went to see entertainment, high level athleticism, things you've never seen before on a football field. He won an MVP here. He took us to a Super Bowl. For him not to have representation, I think, is a giant oversight at best and an incredible disrespect at the worst end of the spectrum.
I think Bryson, and you well said, Ricky, all your points. But I think Bryson nailed it on the head when he said the time is right now. Like, you gotta get this thing right by at this point. In what, 5-6 years ago, he was with this team. And I tweeted this out when I listened to the video, because the first thing I thought of was I took pictures when I went to that PSL owner's visit to the stadium, and I specifically remember talking to my wife about it. Like, Cam's he's not up anywhere really. And I literally went back in my pictures from that time period and looked through all of them. And I found one where they had the team photo of them all on the sideline, the iconic photo they took with Cam Newton in the middle. And that was up in one of the suites. But I find it ironic that, and I want to give Tepper some credit here, and I don't give him credit very often, but I feel like David Tepper has done a better job compared to Jerry Richardson as owner of trying to incorporate and bring back people that have had an impact for this franchise over the years. However, they have fallen short with that with Cam Newton, obviously. And that, I think that's a huge mistake on their part because of what he has meant to not only the franchise, but the city of Charlotte, to North Carolina, and to South Carolina, the Carolinas as a whole. So, and Cam Newton and the Ron Rivera regime, they always have mentioned this. You hear it time and time again. When they came into this franchise, you weren't seeing Panthers jerseys at the stores. No one was walking around wearing a Panthers jersey. And then all of a sudden, over time, once Cam Newton got in the building, you saw number 1 jerseys popping up all over. And they have really put this team on the map. And that was all because of Cam Newton and the Superman mantra he brought to this organization. So to get away from that, and we all know what transpired once Cam left, and the wording they used when he left, and the little short snippet they put out for his little going away video, if you want to call it. I don't even know if they even gave him one. We all know that, but then I feel like Tepper tried to make somewhat of some amends when he brought him back, because I feel like he was the sole reason why they brought him back when Bryson was talking about the Arizona game and then the game after, which honestly was one of the most electrifying atmospheres I've ever experienced at Bank of America, going there since 2018 or so. I don't have that experience when they were in the playoff runs, but when Cam Newton started for that game against Ron Rivera, it was incredible. It was unbelievable, and that team was shit. So, like, to have a fan base rise up like that, and everyone was wearing hats. I have my hat hanging up in the basement still. Everyone trying to look like Cam. Like, that was Cam Newton, and that's what he did for this organization. So, without a doubt, I think whatever the issue is, Tepper or whoever you want to blame for it, they need to make amends with this, and it is a no-brainer that this guy, he should be on almost every single wall in that stadium. His name needs to be retired on the Hall of Honor. And they honestly need to retire the number 1 jersey and no one ever wear it again, if you want to ask me. But yeah, I think without a doubt, I'm glad Cam spoke up, because I feel like it's something that it clearly has been bothering him. It looks like it's been built up over time. And I'm glad he's kind of put that to the forefront. And hopefully, things change as we move forward here
Just
with
to
him and
respond
the relationship.
To respond to the comment from Panther Blue, though, saying that, it's clear, I'm assuming he was talking to me because I was speaking, I think, when he made the comment saying that he didn't watch the full cam video, says no beef with the Teppers. I mean, I said that he himself said that he had no beef with the Teppers, and his pictures are in the building, just not in the Hall of Honor with retired legends. But what Curtis just said about seeing one picture from the 2015 team picture, right? That coincides with exactly what I just heard Vashti Hurt, who covers the team, credentialed media for Carolina Blitz, saying in a space before this episode began, saying that's the only picture she's aware of in the entire building that has Cam Newton's face in it. So it's corroborated what Curtis just said. His picture's not in the building, man. I don't know what he's talking about, saying like his pictures are in the building, just not in the Hall of Honor. We've all been in the building a fair amount of times. I don't see it, right? And I don't know, man. Maybe it is because of the whole retirement thing, but it's weird for him to be all over the media and be pretty sure that he's not looking to get back into the game, but that be the hill that the Panthers are willing to die on, that other people are willing to like look past, right? Like, he's our best player, one of our best players of all time. If we want to celebrate him, it seems like that's a really easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And I get that people make people, you'd mentioned the retirement argument that he's not officially retired. You can still have photos of the guy in your facility.
Yeah, right.
So that's not a good enough excuse for that part of it. So that I don't get. But I mean, there's so many iconic moments with Cam. I mean, you find any Superman pose and slap it up on a wall, like that's Cam. The first down, like everything about it. Like, there are so many moments you can go through in history. The Patriots play where he had like an 80-yard scramble for like a 15-yard first down, like all those iconic moments. The touchdown where he's like plowing through 7 Atlanta Falcons to get a first down in Atlanta. Like, those are iconic moments for Cam Newton. And for not to even see one of those, and all you see is one team photo with him in it, like, it's a disservice across the board. And I know we all agree on that. But yeah, I think without a doubt, Carolina, make your amends, whatever you're going to do, but get this guy. He will do wonders to be an ambassador for this team. And has Bryson talked about, like, the podcast opportunities, man, they dropped the ball on that. Like, fans would love to hear that shit. I would love to hear Greg Olsen and Luke Kuechly and Cam Newton and Thomas Davis talk about the good old days in 2015. We haven't had any good old days around this joint. Like, fans would love that. They'd eat that shit up, and that's how you kind of you boost us a little bit more of what this hell has been like these last couple of years. So I think just they dropped the ball on that. It was a blown opportunity. And this ain't even coming from like the football operation itself. So like these are simple things that they should be able to get right. And I think that's all kind of what we're saying. There's no doubt about it. Let's talk about, let's just see in my notes here where I was headed next. Okay, now let's talk about the Hall of Fame for a minute. So we're talking a little bit former players. We're going to get into our biggest surprise, biggest disappointment this season so far, since we're kind of at the midway point with the bye. We'll talk about Bryce Young. We got the Panthers and Chiefs, statistically speaking, coming up. And then we'll get through our bets and predictions. So that's just kind of what looking ahead for this episode. But let's get into the semifinalists for the Hall of Fame, because two pretty big names in Panthers history. We talked about them a little bit here. Steve Smith Sr. and Luke Kuechly, semifinalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I believe it's 25 semifinalists. I guess I'll start with this. I don't know if Bryson or Ricky want to start. Do you think, because Steve Smith has obviously been in this list before, do you think Luke Kuechly gets in as a first ballot Hall of Famer this time around? I was talking with some coworkers at work about this, and there was kind of, honestly, both of them thought he should get in on the first try. And I'm just curious where you guys are at with that. And these are not Panthers fans that I was talking to either. So what are your guys' thoughts on Luke Kuechly and his first time around? Do you think he gets in?
You know, as the Panthers fan, of course, I think he should. And I think his at his highest level, his play at that position is some of the best we've ever seen from that position. His instinctual abilities, his physicalness that he played the game with. There's been a lot of really good players that have tried to go into the NFL Hall of Fame first ballot and not got it. I don't know if the shortness of his career will play into that, but I think it's probably more likely that he doesn't get in on the first, unfortunately, just based off of precedent set by other first ballot or attempts of other first ballot Hall of Famers. I think he deserves it. I think his play, like I said, was some of the best we've ever seen from that position. Could have been the best linebacker of all time if he continued playing throughout his entire career. I wholeheartedly believe that. If anybody deserves it, from what he gave to the game, it's Luke Kuechly. And I think, still being involved with the organization and around the NFL, I think the guy does everything that, signifies a Hall of Famer in promoting the game and continuing to help it grow. But I think it's going to be hard for a first ballot for him, I believe.
Yeah, when you bring up the longevity, I think that's going to always be the first thing that we think of, right? And that's going to be the kicker that could make it difficult. But when you think about from the beginning of his professional career, right, 2012, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in his first year. He was NFL Defensive Player of the Year in his second season. He was only not named to the first team All-Pro team 1 year after that. And it was because he made the second team All-Pro team in 2016. All the way through, and actually 2 times, I think he was his final year, 2019, the year he retired. I think he also was second team All-Pro. So the guy never played a season where he didn't win a full season accolade or be named as one of the best players to play the position of all the teams in the league every single year, right? So if I look at it just from that standpoint, he's 100% qualified to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that's removing the Panthers from it at all, right? Like, I didn't even say anything about being a Panthers fan or doing it for Carolina. I didn't say what his career ranks are here in Carolina, right? That's simply from a recognition and being voted on doing these things and being named those accolades. So I think that he absolutely should make it first ballot Hall of Fame. I don't think that the longevity, although it can be, I don't think that it should be marked against him because it's not like he played 3 seasons and you're asking him to make it into the Hall of Fame, right? You're talking about 9 seasons, 8 seasons that he played, and every single one was a remarkable, spectacular season. I hope they also have a chance to set a precedent here with this one. You talk about like the precedent set before. How about the precedent they could set here by saying a guy choosing his own health, right? His brain health, the thing that is this huge discussion right now in the NFL and this emphasis that they claim on the rules and the way that they're policing the game. He chose that over continuing at the detriment of his own body. I don't know, man. I think that you could say we're not going to punish people for that. Maybe you say, look, he played 7, 8, 9 years. Like, the dude did everything he could, but it became dangerous. And we don't want this to be a dangerous game. We want it to be a great game. He did everything great. He did everything the right way. He was incredibly intelligent. You could hear his passion for the game still exists. Every story you hear about him, man, he's the guy. He's exactly what epitomizes an NFL player, let alone an NFL linebacker. So I think that he deserves to make it first ballot Hall of Fame. Maybe I'm biased, but I think I presented a decent argument without the bias there for why he should make it.
I think without a doubt he should be first ballot Hall of Famer. And I feel like he shouldn't get slighted for only playing 8 seasons in the NFL. He played a grueling position. One of the most, I would say, dangerous positions in the NFL as far as head-to-head and violent contact. And he shouldn't be slighted for that whatsoever. Many are going to point to, and I brought this up in my discussion today, was look at Patrick Willis. They had very comparable numbers. Patrick Willis was nominated 5 times before he got in. But I do think the impact Luke Kuechly had on the field against opposing offenses. Go listen to when they did the top 100, where the players vote on the top 100 players in the NFL. Go talk about, interview all the top quarterbacks in the league during that time, the Drew Breeses of the world, the Tom Brady's of the world, and ask them what Luke Kuechly did against those teams. He knew plays before they knew the plays. Like, that's the type of player he was. And I don't want to get into all that, but he was outstanding across the board, like the Brian Urlacher of his era at middle linebacker. And honestly, if he kept playing, I think he would have had a way better career than what Urlacher did, and he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think without a doubt, bias, unbiased, whatever you want to call it, I'm biased. I'm a Panthers fan, I get it, but I do think he had an outstanding career, and I don't think he should get slighted because he was done after 8 seasons, because he went out on the high note. Like, he was still at the pinnacle of where he was playing at that position. So, do I think it happens? I kind of side on probably not, just based off history, but I really do hope they make the exception here, because I think he is the exception, and he was a hell of a talent at that position. Let's talk about Steve Smith for a second, because I think this is his 3rd or 4th time maybe now getting a crack at it, and he's been a semifinalist before. What do you think of Steve Smith? Do you think he's going to get in this year? Do you think it's going to take a while? Does he ever get in, do you think, into the Hall of Fame? And maybe Ricky will start with you on this one.
I don't know, man. Smitty's a little bit tougher. First, really good comp with that Patrick Willis situation, because that is, I think, something really critical to remember. If he's 3 or 4 different times now and he hasn't gotten in, that's a pretty good little track right there for Kuechly's likely destination. Smitty, man, I think that Smitty means so much more to Carolina Panthers fans than he does necessarily to the overall NFL landscape, if you were just to take like a consensus feeling about him as a player. I don't know that that's deserved or it's fair, because I think that what Smitty was absolutely ridiculous for the measurables that he had, and the way that he was this alpha number 1 receiver on an NFL team at a time where the NFL was also much more physical, a different brand of the game that we love. I think that Steve Smith is absolutely worthy of it. Production wise, I mean, I think it's fair to say that his production should land him in there. He never won any major individual accolades, doesn't have a Super Bowl to his name. I think that could be the part that makes it difficult for him, right? But it's really hard to do this thing completely unbiased, because when I talk about Panthers players that mean something sentimentally to me individually first, but also just mean something as my fandom overall for the team that I grew up loving and am a fan of, and we all do this content together, we choose to spend our free time talking about this football team, even when we're in shambles and we're barely the team that we knew and loved, we still do it. So I can't say it completely unbiased, man, but so maybe I don't have to. You know what? To hell with this. I'm not doing the politically correct thing anymore. Both of them should be first ballot Hall of Famers. Every single Panther that's ever nominated for the Hall of Fame should get in on the first ballot. I don't care. Put them all in. Every single person that ever played on Mint Street, I want them in the Hall. Put a gold jacket on them.
I do want to say this before Bryson goes is, I don't know if you want to call it an accolade, because it's not really an award, but he did get the Triple Crown, and there are not many players that can say he gotten that. So I think that I would put that as an accolade personally for him, a notch in in his cap for his career in Carolina. And fuck it, I'll just go, and then Bryson, you can go. What Steve Smith is, if you look at him statistically with all the other wide receivers that are in, the hunt, and who have just, I think last year have made it. Was it was Andre Johnson last year in the Hall of Fame?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was. Like, Steve Smith has across the board comparable numbers to every single one of those guys, and honestly, statistically is better than some of those folks, and not a lot of people realize that. But I think for wide receivers it's tougher, because there's a lot of them that are vying for it, and that's your problem. Like, that's what Steve Smith has to deal with. You have Anquan Bolden as a semifinalist, Torrey Holt, Hines Ward, Reggie Wayne. what did all of those wide receivers have? A viable quarterback. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I love Jake Delhomme to death, but they did not have a Hall of Fame quarterback, all pro, throwing them the ball. I mean, Steve Smith, in that respect, on a team who was, I mean, we all know smash and dash, double trouble, whatever the hell you wanted to call, they were a pound the rock team. And Steve Smith still made his money, and he was one hell of a returner too. I mean, that he was a special returner. And oh, by the way, he was 5'9" or 5'10", whatever his height was. Like he played way bigger than what he was. So I do think he has respect around the league, and I do think there's, the Julian Edelmans of the world. I know he had Steve Smith on the pod. They were talking, but you ask even corners, and they say the tenacity and the aggressiveness that Steve Smith played with, it was special. It was. For his size, the dude was a special talent, and I don't know if there's ever going to be another one like him, to be totally honest with you, based off of his size. But I do think eventually he'll get in. I don't necessarily think he was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I do think he'll get in eventually. I don't know if it's going to be this year, just based off this list and the notoriety of some of these other guys. And to Ricky's point, I do think he kind of gets forgotten about when he's going named in Reggie Wayne and the Heinz War and the Torrey Holt. And most of those guys have a Super Bowl ring too, which helps them as well, I think. But I do think eventually he's going to get in. Like, I don't think I would bet $100 that he gets in the Hall of Fame. So there you go. There's for the betting folks out there. But yeah, I do think he gets in. Bryson, what do you think? What do you think of Steve Smith?
Yeah, I think he gets in eventually. I mean, you mentioned the competition he's going up against. I think he's just going to have to wait his turn, unfortunately. I think for me, his best accolade was his quotes, and specifically the "Ice Up Son" quote. I think that is Hall of Fame worthy. I mean, he had some of the best post game interviews the NFL's ever seen. He was just such a personality and a talent that meant a lot to Carolina, and I think meant a lot to the league. And then even after football, his playing, he's working for NFL Network and doing the NFL draft and helping in Carolina. So I think he's still helping grow the game, and I think that plays a role into it as well. So I think he's going to get in for sure. I just don't know if it's going to be this time.
Real quick, just yes or no. If Carolina wins the Super Bowl against the Patriots, is he in the Hall of Fame right now?
I would say no.
Ricky?
Yeah. Because
I
look at his playoff numbers, man. Like, you look at his playoff numbers, right? That's something that I don't think that we really touched directly on. But that 2003 and I believe 2005 season with him, those were remarkable runs of the playoffs, man. I mean, the dude put up 400 yards receiving in 2003. I think 350 in 2005, and then also had the rushing touchdown and punt return touchdown, I believe, in that 2005 run. Like this was a dynamic dude who showed up in big games, right? And when we talk about getting forgotten, I don't think he's forgotten, because you make a great point when you talk about corners and players, right? The way that they revere Steve Smith, they love him. They know how special of a player and a talent he was. But when you're talking about the Hall of Fame, that's not the only people that are voting in on this, right? There's people that aren't players. There's writers in the Hall of Fame people. Those are the ones that are making that decision. And I think that when you have those flashier, bigger names that do have the hardware, right? You make a great point with that Triple Crown. That's a remarkable accomplishment. It should be an accolade. It should be an actual award that if you hit that, it's like hitting the jackpot on an award, right? Why are we celebrating the leader or the leading receiver, but we don't do for all three? That's remarkable, right? So yeah, if he had more hardware, I think that it would be harder to dismiss him as an obvious candidate.
All right, let's move on to the question I didn't give you guys any time to prepare for. Biggest surprise and biggest disappointment. we're obviously through the bye week, so this is kind of like the midway point for the Panthers. So let's start with biggest surprise. Who wants to begin between you two?
You start, Curtis. You're the one that threw all this on. You go first. No,
Yeah,
Bryson, you want to take it?
I can go first.
Yeah, we'll make Curtis go first. We'll punish him.
Yeah.
Biggest surprise for me, I would say, is the offensive line as a whole and how well they played. And I get that they invested heavily into that. I just didn't expect the success to happen right away. I thought it would take some marinating with all those pieces that they brought in together to really be one successful unit. And honestly, from really the jump, that offensive line had cohesion and they looked like they've been playing together for a while. Like it from week one on has been impressive to me. And then if you really want to get specific, it's that center position. Like we all talked about that is why didn't they go out and draft someone and get someone even as a backup to Corbett? Corbett's got no experience. I was at the front of that train. And we're talking about now the three viable centers. Corbett goes down and then Christensen steps in, plays really well. Then Icky gets hurt. Christensen slides over to left tackle. Cade Mays slides into center, plays really well, and is now starting this week again. So, all three of those guys have been really impressive. And just the whole offensive unit as a whole has really, honestly, has been something we haven't talked about because they haven't been playing like shit. And honestly, they need to be talked about more. They've been outstanding this year. The coaches who've been brought in for that unit have been great, and the development of all those guys. So just hats off to them. I think without a doubt, the offensive line for me is the biggest surprise of the season.
Yeah, you took mine. I was going to go offensive line as well. And just to touch on it real quick, and I'll pivot to my other biggest surprise. Also on that offensive line, Ikem Ekwonu. I know he's injured right now, but he's really taken a step forward from a terrible season he had last year when he was in and he was playing. He gets a penalty every now and then, but he's really improved from last season. So offensive line, definitely a surprise. But my one I pivoted to would be my second biggest surprise is Chuba Hubbard. I think we all knew he was a good player, and I think going into this season, we kind of anticipated maybe Jonathan Brooks overtaking that backfield or a 50-50 split and them just sharing time in the backfield. Unfortunately, Jonathan Brooks hasn't seen the field yet. Hopefully he does this weekend. It sounds like he is. But Chuba Hubbard, being a top 5 back in almost every metric in the NFL, I think is a major surprise on my part, at least. I thought he was a good player. I didn't know he was this good. And, it just really shows the hard work he's put in. He was highlighted in the newest Blueprint episode that came out, talking about the contract and kind of shined a light on a little bit of the work he put in. And I think he's another player that Carolina, not another player, one of the few players that Carolina's drafted and developed and really turned out to be a later round pick that's kind of been a home run. And we don't have that very often in Carolina. So Chuba Hubbard, I think, has been extremely impressive. And obviously the Panthers think that as well. And they signed him to a contract extension. He's going to be here for, 4 more years. So I'm excited they got that done and excited to see him in the future in Process Blue.
Ricky, what's biggest surprise so far this, 11 weeks in?
Yeah, I think it's terrific that both of you took the 2 answers that I was thinking of. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. I love that for me so much. So with this last second pivot, I'll go with what you just said, Curtis. Through 11 weeks, 10 games, JC Horn is healthy. That would be another very big, pleasant surprise for me. I believe that the most games he's played in a season in his career is 13. So he is 3 games shy of tying that career mark. And I think that without JC Horn, man, I honestly, we have talked about how bad this defense has been. and you really think about that without JC, because we lose Derek Brown, you lose Shaq Thompson again. Jadeveon Clowney hasn't exactly panned out. There's a lot of moving pieces. DJ Johnson is kind of like the Dennis Brown clip, right? He is who we thought he was. Like he can stop the run. He can't do anything else. We let him off the hook. But JC Horn being healthy is a huge storyline because it also kind of presses the Panthers' hands in the extension for him contractually. You know that if he is healthy, this is a top 10 cornerback in the NFL. And I say top 10 to be very lenient because I don't feel like having people debate me about what I actually think JC Horn is. And you see Made for More here saying it right here. JC is getting his first Pro Bowl this year. I agree wholeheartedly, man. Like I think it would be a shame if he wasn't thought of as one of the top corners in the NFC. So that's a huge story for me. There's not a whole lot of bright spots. I do completely agree with you two. Much smarter than me and much more fortunate to go first guys than me. The offensive line, specifically that center position, and Chuba Hubbard. We all know how I feel about Big League Chew, man. Like I've already asked my son if I can change his name legally to Chuba, and he's not into it. So I tried.
All right, Ricky. Since we let you go, you can go first on biggest disappointment. There you go.
Well,
take it away.
I haven't even thought about that yet because I was giving my answer now. No, biggest disappointment for me, man, and I hope that this doesn't sound too awful. It's Bryce Young. And it's not just his individual play, which has been disappointing to me, specifically those first 2 weeks, but even to an extent, some of the things we're seeing now, right? That we're still seeing operation with kitty gloves on. Some of that I 100% put on the coach for feeling like he has to play with kitty gloves. I think that it's unnecessary. I think that you can let this guy play sink or swim with your quarterback that you drafted and traded up and did all this ridiculous stuff to get him, to treat him like a child. But it's also disappointment for me with Bryce because I saw a really good amount of stuff in that rookie season that I felt really comfortable would translate and progress to another level of play in the NFL, regardless of what kind of defense he plays. I don't care if he plays against tough defenses to start the year. Go out and beat a tough defense in to start the year, right? Like this is all stuff that we wanted to see out of him. We wanted him to take that step. He didn't. That has been the major individual component for me that has caused this ridiculously disappointing season. I didn't anticipate this season being a Super Bowl run. I didn't even anticipate it being a postseason run. I definitely did not think we were contending for the first overall pick again, though. 1 year removed from it. And I thought that a big reason we wouldn't be was because Bryce would show everybody that they were wrong. And it turns out that's still up in the air.
Bryson?
Yeah, and I think all those are fair points, Ricky. I think to say that you shouldn't be disappointed in what Bryce has put on the field this season is just wrong. I mean, I'm one of the biggest Bryce Young supporters in the world, and I'm disappointed with what's happened this season. And I think he's making progress and working towards a more successful season, but those first 2 games were bad, man. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the clear biggest disappointment with this team. For me, other than that, I'm gonna use a quote as my biggest disappointment. Excuse me, and that was a quote that Dave Canales gave us, I think, in one of his introductory press conferences, and that was that he was going to be stubborn with the run. He has not been stubborn with the run. We saw him be stubborn a little bit versus the Giants. I think that was Chuba's most carries he's had in the season, and we saw how successful it was. But for a coach to preach the run and then continually game after game, we sit up here week after week talking about this is how you exploit this team. You run the ball, and we come on here the couple days after and talk about why didn't they run the ball. That's a huge disappointment for me because this is a team built to run the ball with the offensive line that we have and with Chuba Hubbard, who's found extreme success in situations with the ball in his hand. I think that area, that quote is definitely disappointing, and I think adds to a long list of disappointments with this team that we could go on and on about this season.
That's a damn good one. Props to you, dude. That I didn't think of that, and that was a damn good one.
Yep.
I do think Bryce Young obviously is the big one. I think for me, and kind of going along with that, and then I'll actually tell you what I was thinking, just separate from what you guys said, is Dave Canales' failure to just commit to him the rest of the year is what has been disappointing for me. When just based off of the circumstances and how Andy Dalton has played over the last 4 games before the sprained thumb in the car accident, that has been just mind-boggling to me of how they've handled that entire situation. So that just kind of goes off Ricky's point. For me, I would go with the safeties. I thought Xavier Woods had a hell of a year last year. Coming into this season, they go out and get Jordan Fuller, a guy who's played under Evero's system. Go out and get Nick Scott, a guy who's played under Evero's system, familiar with the way he runs things defensively. And then I thought that safety group just dropped the ball early on in the season. I feel like they're slowly starting to pick things up a little bit over these last couple of weeks. But it took some injuries. It took a rookie getting thrown in there. So like I had way more expectations for that group. And I thought it was one of the stronger groups defensively. And I felt like they dropped the ball in the early part of the season. I guess I could see, and I think Carter said this about Jadeveon Clowney. I can see that. I get that too because the stat numbers aren't there. But I do think he plays a pretty damn big role against the run when he's not getting, when he wasn't the only man on that line, really, if you look at the injuries and not having Wanham and just no-namers on the other side. So I do give him a little bit credit there, but I do agree. Like Clowney has been a disappointment just based off of what his production was last year.
Maybe underwhelming would be like the right way to put that as far as disappointing, because like I think you make a good point there though, Curtis. Jadeveon isn't putting up the production and he's not causing a lot of havoc, but that's not anything he really did that much on his own in his career anyways. So like it's underwhelming because of where we thought we were going to be with the edge rushers that we signed to where we are. But he is playing a good role here for Carolina too, man. Like he shows up every week and on film, man, he's having some really good reps every single week. He has a couple that he's not, proud of, I'm sure, but he does have some really notable stuff every week.
All right, I think this is a good spot to take a break. We're going to be back in 30 seconds.
I'm going to chug this beer, by the way, because Patrick convinced me that I actually have to do a shot and chug a beer because I had 2 losses, but I'm going to do the beer on camera. And then when you go to the bet thing, I'll change it. So you go ahead, keep talking, and I'll do this.
Yeah, you do the shot when we come back. How does that sound? So yeah, we'll go to a break here. We're going to talk Bryce Young a little bit more coming up after this quick break. We got statistically speaking, and then we'll do bets and predictions. So stand by for that. Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. Yeah, don't forget about sports betting, folks. Last week, I think we were 2 for 3. If you hedge it, you still probably win. I think it was Bryson and I hit. Ricky's still waiting for that shot.
You think it was Bryson and you that hit? You know it was Bryson and you that hit. I just chugged the damn highlight to prove the point, man. Look, I've been shit. I'm going to get back right. Don't worry, guys. Don't lose faith in me.
I think you only lost 1 week. It wasn't like it was a couple of weeks in a row. I don't think it was.
Yeah, but I'm supposed to be perfect, man. I can't lose one single week, Curtis.
All right, let's talk. Ricky, you posed this, so I'm going to have you answer first on this. You put this out on Twitter today, and you can kind of tell us how folks responded to. But you put out, if Bryce Young plays poorly against the Chiefs, should it justify a switch back to Dalton? And I'll let you kick things off.
So part of the reason that I pose this is because there is a large group of fans, and I don't think you're wrong for this. I'm just saying that it is the opinion of fans that this week by week approach is working. And they think that what you're seeing from Bryce Young is partially because of the way that Dave Canales is handling this as this carrot dangling motivational tool instead of handing him the keys to the kingdom. I mean, first of all, the kingdom is made of fucking cardboard boxes right now, right? Like, we're talking about don't let him feel confident enough of taking over this offense that ranks 26 in the league, right? But so part of what I was trying to see there, man, is I don't fault anyone for having differing opinions. I want to know the logic behind it. Because if this is a true thing about we're going to keep doing a week by week evaluation, and if Bryce Young, if this is working, then Bryce Young is earning it, which means if it's working, he'll continue to progress and be good, right? Or be better every single week. If he doesn't, if he plays against the Chiefs, which he's going to, and he plays like a lot of people think the Carolina Panthers are going to play against the Chiefs, it's going to be really tough to say, no, it's still working. Like, we still trust, that this motivational thing is what we should be going with. And Bryce Young is progressing. If he has a really bad game, man, you can't say that, right? You'll have to say, no, we want to see how he responds. We want to see what he does after a bad game or something along those lines, right? And that's kind of where my overall thought process came from with this was, isn't that kind of just saying we're going to stick with him and commit to him and give him a vote of confidence that he's our quarterback, even if he has a down game? Because then they go and they play, who is it, the Bucks after that? And then they get the Eagles, and then they get the Cowboys. So it's this it's like Sour Patch Kid of a schedule, right? Like, you get the sour, tough team, and then you get the little, oh, that's a sweet piece of candy. Like, we're going to whoop that ass. And then it's, oh, no, it's a sour Eagle now. And then it's this sweet little cowboy that used to have spurs on his boot, and now he's wearing flip-flops around, right? Like, these are all things that when I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the schedule, I'm like, so this is why you commit to one person, though. And if it's not Bryce, if you truly don't believe in Bryce, then commit to Andy and sit Bryce and let him learn watching. Like, that's my problem with this, man. I'm not even saying that you have to commit to Bryce. I would. I think he's done plenty to earn the commitment for 7 damn games. He got 2 to start the year, pulled him, and then they committed to Andy for 5. They didn't pull it from Andy because he played bad. Andy threw for 90 yards against the Bears, and then he threw for 87 yards against the Commanders. They didn't pull him because of those bad games. They pulled him because he had a thumb injury from a car accident, unfortunately. They committed to Andy Dalton. They will not commit to Bryce Young, and I don't see that as motivational. I see it as they don't believe in Bryce Young, whether it's right now or previously they didn't believe that he was ready and that he had the goods to do this. And they're leaving it open for when he does have that bad game, they're going to say, hey, look, we told you. We are leaving this open for a week-by-week evaluation. This week was an awful performance. We think that next week, Andy Dalton gives us the best chance. And if Andy Dalton gets back on that field, not from injury to Bryce Young, if he gets on that field because of bad performance from Bryce Young, I want to hear everyone tell me how that motivational thing worked out again and how that's the way that you should have done it with Bryce Young instead of committing, because that may be the last time that you see Bryce Young on the field in a Carolina Panthers jersey. And you may not know how it would have worked out. You may not know how that story plays out, but you may watch it play out in a different city. And we've seen some of our Carolina Panthers get their story played out in a different city with a different franchise, and it doesn't feel very fucking good.
Amen. Well said.
Yeah, very well put. Very well put. I mean, I agree. I think that their lack of commitment to Bryce Young, really, they're showing their anticipation for him playing bad and trying to make it easier for themselves in a coaching staff that I think believes in Andy Dalton more than they believe in Bryce Young to move on from him when that happens. I think that's the sole reason why they are going this route. I don't buy the that it's working, Bryce Young's playing good because they're doing this argument that Ricky mentioned. I don't buy that whatsoever. I think that's very, juvenile. And for me to believe that, I just don't. I think if he plays poorly, you give him another chance to bounce back. The Chiefs defense we're going to get into in a little bit is a very good defense. Very good defense. We know their offense. It's not going to surprise the NFL world if Bryce Young goes out and struggles versus the Chiefs. And it shouldn't surprise fans either. But I think this coaching staff is just biding time. And I don't know why. I don't know how this has happened for them to not 100% back their quarterback they drafted to be their franchise quarterback a year ago. It just seems like the relationship is sour there somehow, some way. I mean, we see after the games, Bryce and Dave Canales hugging and they're smiling and things like that. But like, you never hear in like the post game, like locker room talks, like Dave Canales shouting out Bryce Young for a win or shouting out good play in those talks in the locker rooms. I mean, he mentions it sometimes in his pressers post game, but I just never really get the sense that he's like 100% behind Bryce. And this is a supportive situation, and we're here. And if he struggles, we're giving him another chance. Like this is a developmental organization, quote unquote, but it doesn't seem like it's that way for the quarterback, unfortunately. I think the smart thing to do would be to commit and ride it out no matter what happens and see what you have, and it makes your decision easier at the end of the year. Talked about that before, but it doesn't seem like that's the route this coaching staff wants to go, at least. So, no, to answer the question, I don't think it justifies a switch back to Andy Dalton. We saw how poorly he played versus the two teams, the Bears and the Commanders. I mean, it was bad. It was as bad as Bryce's week 1 and week 2 games. So I think you continue to put the young guy out there and hope he figures things out and just hope for the best moving forward.
And Curtis, before you go, can I say I didn't answer the question either? Obviously, yes, I think no, you should not go back to Andy Dalton. And Curtis or Bryson just brought up the last part that I'll say before Curtis. I want to hear your rebuttal to it too. Is Bryce deserves at least, right? If he has a bad game against this Chiefs defense, that we are about to discuss why it is a very feasible thing to have a bad game against this Chiefs defense, he deserves a chance at redemption after that, right? Or at least a bounce back opportunity.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're talking about 2 out of the last 7 games. Is it really worth this musical chairs game at quarterback for 5 games when you would be 3-8, 3-9 at that point? Is it really worth not finding out what you have in Bryce Young? That's my entire gripe with this. I am not saying commit to Bryce Young and say he's our starter now and he's our starter for 2025 and he's our starter for 2026. We just signed his 5th-year extension. Like, I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying you got 7 games left in a busted season. Why the hell do you not play him, man? And if you're going to give him 2 games, 5 doesn't hurt in my opinion. Sorry, Curtis. I didn't mean to jump in front of you, but I wanted to clarify that I did answer no.
No, you're good. I don't know. I get the sense that Canales is like playing hard to get. Like, it's like, dude, like he does not want to just, like Bryson said, it's almost like the reporters have to pry for him to give any compliments to Bryce Young. Like it's like they're prying for it. Like, what'd you think of his play? Do you think he's got confidence? But like, he just doesn't come out and say it, and he speaks highly of others on the team. But man, when they ask about a Bryce Young question, it's like he clams up, and it's like it's like a typical coach speak. Like, and it's really not even typical coach speak, because most coaches are gonna spew and try to spew confidence in their starters, and it feels like they have to pry for him to even say anything about it. That's what just throws me off about the entire situation. It's the way it's being handled is very odd. And I know there's been people out there that say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, this is the way they're doing it. But I think that's just a piss poor excuse for how it's being handled right now. And Andy Dalton is 37 years old. I don't know how many times we have to harp on about this on this show. The guy has
me feel awful. Every time you talk about his age, it makes me as a 37-year-old feel like shit.
Well, I hope it does, damn it, because the guy has thrown 39,000 yards in the league. Okay. He's had a decade-old career, more than a decade. And if you're not comfortable with that, 2 seasons ago, he started with the Saints for several games and put up 2,800 yards, had 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So if you want a more snapshot recently, because I see the argument out there, he might be the bridge for next year. You don't have to go very far to see what he can do in those starts. So like Ricky said, let Bryce play out this last 7 games, see what the guy can do. And then if you don't like him after this year, go and trade him away. You're not losing much value anyway. The trade deadline's passed. You weren't getting much for him then. You're not going to get much for him after the fact if he doesn't play up to par and he's not your franchise quarterback.
Did we lose him?
And see what he can do. So the way they've handled this and the way people have defended them doing this makes no sense to me at all because no other team has done this. No one. It's only the Carolina Panthers. They find a way to make very unusual fucking decisions, and it makes no sense at the most important position on your team.
Yeah, agreed. Wholeheartedly, man. And you talk about like if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? That's the excuse that people say. Well, if the part about the quarterback not being broke is Bryce Young, then why are you still leaving the door open to fix it with Andy Dalton? Like, if Bryce Young is the difference here about winning, and you're saying that that's what's working, right? Because it's the same lineup. Actually, the lineup has gotten worse. They got rid of Deontay Johnson. Adam Thielen got hurt. Like, the lineup has lost proven NFL players, and the team has won more games. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then Canales, take your hands off the damn hammer and let Bryce Young play the next 7 games in a lost season. Okay, sorry. Let's move on to something better, huh?
Real quick, I was going to touch on Carter's comment. He keeps mentioning Jack Plummer. Jack Plummer is not a good quarterback, not a average quarterback, not a poor quarterback. He is an awful quarterback, and I think if he gets on an NFL field, we're going to see some very bad play. If they're going to play a young guy, play Bryce Young, who's shown ability to be a good quarterback. It might not be consistent. It might not be what we've expected, but it's been some glimpses of promise. So I don't think Plummer needs to touch an NFL field during a Sunday when it matters, moving forward for the Panthers.
Thank you, Carter, for trying to make me feel better about the ageism and offer me the box of donuts. I do appreciate that.
I will say this, and I'll stand by it. If Jack Plummer starts over Bryce Young, a healthy Bryce Young, at all this season, I am not watching any more Panthers football. So I will come on this podcast, and I'll just be the moderator, and you guys can tell me about the games because I am not watching if Bryce Young is benched over Jack Plummer, who put up 100 yards in the ACC championship against Florida State and threw a couple interceptions and was terrible and made any fan in that stadium want to leave that game. It was awful. That guy is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. But anyway, I digress.
But his dad grows really good mushrooms, though. At least that's what I've heard.
All right, let's talk about I think we're in statistically speaking. All right, let's do this.
The old familiar wheelhouse, huh? We didn't have that last week, and it was weird. Last week, we were doing the show prep. I'll give you guys a little behind the scenes conversation here. We're doing the show prep, and Curtis had said something to us, and it was like, "Hey, we're only doing these things, and we got an opportunity for a shorter episode." And I didn't think, I'm an idiot, right? I'm sitting there, and I'm like, they fucking cut statistically speaking, man. Like, they hate it. They don't like doing this thing. I was like, I'm hurt, man. You could have at least told me that you didn't like it. I could have shortened it up. I could have done something, but no, it was a bye week, and I'm just a blubbering 37-year-old idiot. So glad to be back in action.
All right, let's get into it. Rick, you can kick things off here. I'll go full for you. There you go.
All right, here we go. Kansas City Chiefs offense, 24 points per game. That ranks 11th in the league, 337.9 yards per game. That's good for 16th, right in the middle of the road. 226.5 of those yards come from passing yards per game. That's good for 11th. 111.4 rushing yards per game. That's only 23rd in the league. Plus 0.04 EPA per pass attempt. That's expected points added per pass attempt. That's tied for 9th. This is an efficiency statistic and analytic measure. The same exact unit of plus 0.004 expected points added per rush attempt. That's tied for 6th. So you see, this is a very efficient offense. Even if it's not overly dynamic, it's very efficient, and it makes a lot of sense with their coaching. 26 offensive touchdowns. That's 10th in the league. 55.9% of the play calls are passing calls, and that's tied for 17th. So again, middle of the league. You know, when I look at this, just kind of like this rundown, right? Outside of the rushing yards per game, this is exactly the kind of offense that I love in the NFL. It doesn't always rely on explosives. Now, look, I think that they need more explosives in their offense. They need more speed. They've kind of lost that. It doesn't help that Hollywood Brown is hurt. You know what I mean? Xavier Worthy's been hit or miss, but he shows you what he brought to it. But this is the kind of offense that is dangerous because they're consistent and they do like the hard work. They're like a bring your helmet to work type of situation. And I appreciate that because they don't overly rely on Pat Mahomes like many people think they might. I could jump straight into the keys here if you guys want me to keep this train moving a little bit. So for the offensive keys, we've highlighted 17 rushes of 10 plus yards. That's tied for last in the league. So when we just talked about the explosives, that's a good example. They don't get it. But here's another example of what I just spoke about. 12.1% of the time, they have a team run stuff rate. That means they're stopped for a loss or for 0 yards gained. That is best in the NFL, which means they are very difficult to get a negative run play, despite the fact that they don't have a dynamic rushing offense. They will wear you down. They will grind your bones with that run game. And then the minute that you commit to it and you think that you can kind of like focus on it, don't forget about that alien wearing number 15 underneath center. 1,517 team yards after catch. That's third best in the league. 4.2 average target separation is second best in the league. Now, those statistics might lead somebody to believe they have dynamic receivers. They have dynamic playmakers. That's schematics is what that is, to be completely honest. Andy Reid and Matt Nagy do as good of a job as anybody in the NFL, maybe outside of Sean McVay, in my opinion, of giving pre-snap movement, giving different looks, and drawing up plays for space instead of players. They really create to spots on the field and for creating that separation, and they are damn good at doing it. The offense has allowed 22 sacks. That's 10th in the league on 113 quarterback pressures. That's 9th in the league. So the offensive line does their job. Their right tackle tends to get a false start every single damn play, but the NFL officials don't believe in that, apparently, if you're wearing the red and yellow. 15 passing touchdowns for him. That's tied for 10th. Now, Mahomes does lead the league. He's tied for the league lead in interceptions with 11. I don't worry too much about that. I know a lot of people bring that up, and they're like, man, Mahomes throwing these interceptions, like he's not as good as everyone thought. I don't think that's the case, man. You look at who he's playing with. You look at what they're doing. Mahomes takes some risks that come with the kind of ball player that he is, but there is still not another player that I would take outside of Patrick Mahomes playing the quarterback position, and that includes Josh Allen, who's playing at an incredible level, Joe Burrow, who is lights out, and even, you know, Bryson's good buddy from Chapel Hill, Drake May. So, yeah, I think that this offense, man, they are slow and steady wins the race type of offense, but then every now and then they will drop Xavier Worthy into the playpen, and he runs circles around all his buddies.
Yeah, this offense, I'm trying to remember who Carolina's all faced this season. I feel like this is the most potent offense they've faced. And I'm not just talking about Patrick Mahomes. I'm talking about the run game. Kareem Hunt is hard to get down. I know DeAndre Hopkins is aging, but, you know, Carolina, they struggled without Olave with the Saints for a bit in New Orleans if they knew how to throw the damn ball. So you have Hopkins, Worthy. I don't know if Carolina has anyone on that team defensively in the secondary that can cover Xavier Worthy's speed straight up. Even JC Horn. Like, he's got Worthy has top end speed that's hard to cover. And I feel like the disconnect with him and Mahomes is Mahomes hasn't been able to find him and hit him on some of the plays he's been open. And I feel like that's where they have struggled. And this is probably going to be the get right for them, where he goes off and he shows what he was in the combine. with his top end speed. So he worries me. And then Travis Kelce, how can Carolina defend? And I know Kelsey's kind of had a down year, you probably call it. Honestly, I think Noah Gray I know he had a pretty big game this past week against Buffalo, where he caught a ton of passes. So like they got some deep positions. And then we haven't even talked about the guy that they're probably going to get back this week in Isaiah Pacheco, who adds just an entirely other element to this offense that they don't have much to game plan because they haven't seen him much with him being out from injury. And then we're talking about Mahomes, arguably the best QB in the NFL, hands down. Obviously has had those 11 interceptions this year, but the guy's outstanding. And, I'm worried, man. I think they're going to put up 35-40 on this defense. I really do. I think it's going to be brutal defensively for this team because they haven't faced someone like this all year yet. They really haven't.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a team that has a chance to potentially go three-peat for the Super Bowl. I mean, this is the definition of a dynasty. Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in the league. Curtis mentioned them getting Isaiah Pacheco back, who is going to improve those run game numbers. I think they were ranked 23rd in the league, average rushing yards per game. Pacheco is a better running back than what Kareem Hunt is. They signed him off the streets, and he's been effective. But Isaiah Pacheco runs hard. He runs mean. He is a good player that they drafted, I believe, in the 7th round. And obviously, the offensive line for the Chiefs has played really well. If the Panthers cannot get any pressure on Patrick Mahomes throughout this game, he's going to pick you apart. And let's be honest, the receivers, when we played the Giants, were open. A lot of plays. The flea flicker in particular stands out. He had 2 wide receivers wide open. Daniel Jones did, and he just didn't throw the ball. Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball, and it's going to be on target. So if they scheme up plays like that, those plays are hitting versus the Chiefs, and unlike versus the Giants, where they had a quarterback that couldn't facilitate it. So, it's concerning. Hopefully coming off the bye week, they've had 2 weeks to prepare, and we'll see what the defense can do. But I mean, we're asking for a struggling defense to play potentially one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played the position, and contain him. So, I think the key to the game is to try to run the ball. I know it's a good defense, but run the ball, keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. Time of possession is important, and try to maintain that way.
I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing quick?
Yeah.
I'm going to call this now. The Chiefs are going to run some wacky ass trick play that they're testing out for the playoffs against Carolina, and it's going to work. And I bet your ass it's going to be the talk all over online, and they're going to play it a million times on ESPN because that just seems like, and like Bryson said, the flea flicker was there last week against Carolina, and I feel like Carolina is not very good with misdirection on defense, and it's gonna be some Andy Reid hot dog cheeseburger play, whatever the hell he's gonna call it, and they're gonna kill him on it. They really are. I'm not looking forward to that.
If it's not a play that they're going to run in the playoffs, it's going to be a play that they build off of to run a subsequent play in the playoffs, right? Like they're essentially what they're going to do is the Sean Payton. They're going to put something on film for another team to account for. And then when the playoffs come and you worry about it, you're like, oh, shit. Well, you know they're going to do something cute. You know that they're about to put the donut on it, right? Andy Reid loves putting a donut on it. He does. But you know what? His timing is impeccable with that donut, man. It's not there the whole time. Right? It's just for like the very fun part, right? Like, all right, real quick, let's add an extra element. But what he'll do is he'll run a play this Sunday that will work. You're right. And then he'll run a play that looks like that in the playoffs, but does a completely different thing. And that'll be where his greatness shines. That's a really good point, though. But what I was going to say is that if Brian Dable, because you guys or Bryce have brought up the great thing about the open receivers for the Giants, if Brian Dable was able to scheme open that New York Giants offense against our defense, Andy Reid is going to find success against this defense. He is going to put his team in successful opportunities. So the question that you're asking again is, do they have the personnel to finish those plays? I bet you that they feel comfortable with the guy they have at least delivering the passes. And that's a whole different ball game than what you could say about those New York Giants, who just went to Tommy DeVito, for what it's worth.
All right,
should we get into the defensive side?
Yeah.
All right, let's look. Defensive side for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I'll be honest, man. This is the identity of the Chiefs for right now, and honestly, for the past couple seasons, if you want to be real about it. Steve Spagnuolo's defense is one of the best units in the league. 19.1 points per game. That's 8th in the league. 297.5 yards per game. That's good for 5th in the league. I mean, do they allow sub 300 overall yards per game? And we'll get into, I want to speak a little bit about his philosophy later. Once we're done doing all this, I want to give a little bit of insight on why I think that their defense is as good as they are. 212.2 passing yards per game. That's 17th in the league. 85.3 rushing yards per game allowed. That's 3rd best in the league. Dude, that is going to be rough sledding for a team that we really need our rushing game to be the catalyst for igniting our offense. 6.1 passing yards per play allowed, tied for 14th. 3.6 rushing yards per play allowed, tied for 2nd best. 22 touchdowns allowed, that's tied for 11th. And 59.7% of the times opponents are passing against the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of that also has to do with the scheme that they run and the things that they do. Let's look at, pardon me for coughing directly into my mic. Let's look at the defensive keys here. 19 sacks. This is the good thing for you, right? Tied for 27th. 124 quarterback pressures, tied for 19th. 32.7% quarterback pressure rate is 20th. And a 5% sack rate is 27th. Really interesting that those statistics apply to this defense and a Steve Spagnuolo defense specifically, because Steve Spagnuolo is known for creating havoc and sending blitzes, different blitzes that you don't know what's happening. We'll talk about that a little bit more. It's not always about getting home as it is about speeding up and stopping that process from having the time to unfold. 17 rushes of 10-plus yards allowed. 2nd best in the league. They don't allow dynamic plays. 1 yard before contact per rush allowed. That's 3rd best in the league. I mean, this is a disciplined defense, guys. 35.1% blitz rate. That's 4th in the league. 8 rushing touchdowns allowed, tied for 10th. 14 passing touchdowns allowed, tied for 14th. So when I talk about Spags, right, and I talk about the defense and I talk about his philosophy, if you'll humor me for like 5 minutes and then we'll get like kind of like what we're thinking about for this specific matchup with the Panthers and the Chiefs. Kind of what
before
his
you
deal
get into
is.
that,
Yeah,
hold on, before you get into that, let's sit Alex quick here and then you can go off. We appreciate it, Alex. He's 8-9 Ricky for his bet. Just left a rehearsal dinner. Who's getting married on a Thursday? I have issues with that.
Well, and Alex, I would like you to know that I chugged a beer tonight for a penance because I wrecked your parlay. I wrecked everyone's parlay if they tailed. So thank you for the $4.99. Bryson and Curtis will spend it wisely.
Yes, sir.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, Ricky, fire away.
All right. All I wanted to do was kind of just talk a little bit because we hear so much about Steve Spagnuolo's defense, right? And about how good they are. And I just think that it's nice to kind of have an idea of what to expect and what Bryce Young will be up against, and Dave Canales as a first-time head coach is going to be up against. It's havoc, right? That's what we talked about. He shows a plethora of blitzes, and he's very successful when blitzing a defensive back specifically. That was last year. That was his calling card. This year, he's replicating it again. Even in simulated pressures, he's finding success. And a simulated pressure, I mean, I assume most people are familiar with that, but that's when you send a linebacker or defensive back that looks like the blitz, right? That you're adding an extra person coming, but a defensive lineman drops back. So you're really keeping that pressure to that core 4 players that are rushing the passer. But he still finds a lot of success for that because of his coverage disguising and his pre-snap adjustments that he does. Kind of the basis of his blitz heavy concept is to keep the opposing quarterback and essentially the offensive coordinator on the other side in the dark about what looks you're seeing, especially on pivotal downs and situations. They are one of the best 3rd down situational defenses you will ever see. And a lot of this is because their core principle outside of havoc is discipline. They rely on that defensive front to collapse the pocket. And that means that they coach their players very much. And coach or players have come out and said this about Steve Spagnuolo playing for him. They coach their players to be really matter of fact about the angles that they take and their gap integrity and the things that they come in to be responsible for. That also is great reason for what you see of the run defense. These guys know where they're supposed to be and they have specific jobs and they buy into it, man. They also are incredibly intelligent with Steve Spagnuolo. They emphasize drafting players that conceptually understand, but conceptually push themselves into doing things that are outside of the norm. It's really impressive, man. And he talks about that with like Nick Bolton, Shamari Connor, Justin Reed. Chris Jones obviously is a monster in the middle for them. But like guys like George Karlaftis, Leo Chenal, these guys play critical parts of this defense. You'll see a lot of dime. That's a staple for Steve Spagnuolo. And Shamari Connor is a guy to watch as well as Leo Chenal in my mind. Those are the guys that I would kind of keep an eye on in this matchup because what they're doing and the way that they're being utilized are the most Swiss Army knife, I think, of the entire defense. Thank you for my soapbox rant. I just wanted to get that off because I've been thinking a lot about how much I hear fans worry about this defense, and it's for good reason, man.
I just want to shout out Dylan, first time listening to us live on the live stream. So we do appreciate you tuning in. I know you've listened to us before, but
hell yeah, what's up, Dylan?
Welcome to the live stream. But going off what you said, I mean, it amazes me. I don't know what they're paying Spagnuolo, but this guy is not a head coach anywhere else. And I get it. I mean, there's something to say when you're winning consistently and winning Super Bowls, and maybe he's comfortable where he's at. But the dude is a hell of a coach, and whatever they have done to keep him defensively for that team it's incredible because you see other teams that have won Super Bowls with an offensive coach at head coach, and it's a turnstile on the DC side, on the defensive side. So he's incredible. Those players you've mentioned, Nick Bolton is something else. Trent McDuffie's special. Like across the board, and then Chris Jones is a menace in the middle. That's a really big test for this defensive line this week. And then it's a big test for the rookies, like going against a premier defense. We have a lot of rookies like JT Sanders and Coker and X. Like, how are those guys going to fare against a premier defense? I think Adam Thielen, I know he has slowed down, but I feel like bringing him back into the mix is going to add some value for them because he really knows how to, sort through the zones and find those soft pockets. And I'm hoping Coker can do that as well.
Adam Thielen a revenge game too, right? Didn't Thielen want to go to the Chiefs and they didn't want no part of him? So, he's going to show out for like a nice 637 line, man. I love it.
I'll tell you what, I did not know the Chiefs have Keith Taylor. That's news to me.
He was practice squad. I don't know if he's been activated, but
anyway, I mean, I did not expect him to be on that defense.
He was the only guy from that round of cuts that we made 2 years ago. He was the only guy that landed on a practice squad.
Interesting. But anyway, across the board, this defense is special. If Carolina has a shot in this game, I think Bryson nailed it. They got to control the clock and be what Canales has said from the beginning, and that's stubborn with the run. And I mean, we haven't even gotten into the Panthers yet, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's going to be huge. And you're going to go up against a team like Ricky showed us that has done outstanding against the run this year. So it's going to be a tough pill this weekend for sure. Bryson, what do you got with this defense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see the test for this to be the gauge for this running game. If Canales is willing to commit to it, and this is one of the top tier run defenses in the NFL. This offensive line has its work cut out for him, and Chuba Hubbard, along with Jonathan Brooks, who's making his return. We'll see if it's been a fluke. We've been playing bad rush defenses, or this rush offense can be effective versus a good defense. I'm excited to see that, and I think it's important that you take that route, no matter what happens early on in the game, continuing taking that route to attempt to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. and manage that clock. There's really no weaknesses with this team, and I think that goes without saying. Back-to-back Super Bowl champs going for their third in a row. Crazier things have happened in the NFL in regards to upsets, but this is a long shot for sure.
Crazier things have probably happened. Maybe not a whole lot crazier, right? Like this one would be pretty high up on that totem pole. If there's ever a week to be stubborn with the run, it's this one. And it's not because
saying that every week.
Yeah, but it's not because. But this is for an entirely different reason, I think, and it's for the opposite reason of why we normally say that it's the time to be stubborn. It's not so much that that's the way you win the game, right? That's the way that you don't get the doors blown off of you immediately in this game, because it's not likely to work for most of this game, man. Like I'm just going to be completely honest. You are going to have a rough time running on this rush defense. But the minute you go away from it and become one-dimensional, and you let Steve Spagnuolo draw up all of the exotic looks that he will draw up and the pressure that he will send from the depths of hell, I mean, he's going to put 8 guys on the field, and 4 of them are just going to run from the sideline and blitz. Like, he's going to do some crazy stuff that you never even seen before. Like, you can't give him that kind of freedom and confidence that he knows for a fact you're not doing anything. And when we do the real quick Carolina portion of this, I would like to talk a little bit with you guys about the blueprint, not blueprint, right? But how the Bills won that game last week, because that's the only proof you have of a team beating them in 2024. This is a 9-1 football team, right? So there's one game that you could go for looking at how did they win that game. So I want to talk about how the Panthers can do that too, possibly, or what they would need to do that. You guys comfortable with me sliding over to the Panther slide here? All right, cool.
Here it is.
Let's get straight into it. This is a pretty easy one. Now, look, I did consider doing a full-blown statistical speaking for the Panthers this week because they're on a 2-game win streak. They got a couple of different things going, But for the sake of keeping this segment a little bit expedited, they beat the New York Giants in Munich, Germany, with an overtime field goal by the most accurate kicker in NFL history. If you know my stance on Eddie Pinheiro before this season started, you know that kind of like hurt a little bit for me to say, because I was okay with the thicker kicker taking his spot before they even played a damn game. I also think it's kind of funny that you become the most accurate kicker in NFL history by somebody else not doing their job well anymore, but I'll leave that alone. Bryce the Reaper strikes again. Daniel Jones gets benched for Danny's weird-looking cousin, Tommy DeVito. Current record is 3-7, and that is after a 2-game win streak. So, yes, we are celebrating the 2-game win streak. It's a lot of fun. But when you look at it, it is rough to imagine that we were also 1-7 before that 2-game win streak. And now we play the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions in this next game. So fingers crossed, man. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the Bills did with this team and kind of like how, like, the key things that I took away from it?
Yeah, go ahead. I watched that game, but I wasn't sitting there studying what they were doing. So, yeah, go ahead, and then we can jump in. I have some questions, too, for you guys about this matchup.
And so the fun part is I think that we were all excited about Jonathon Brooks, right? At least I am. I'm like out of my mind excited about Jonathon Brooks. If you haven't heard, I was high on Jonathon Brooks pre-draft. He was my number 1 guy. He was my 35th overall prospect. I love him. I think he's outstanding. And if he's healthy, dude, I think he is an absolute difference maker to this offense. And that's no slight to Chuba. But what Jonathon does is pretty damn special, in my opinion. I think that what he can offer is something that the Bills wanted to incorporate and get going, and there was concerted effort, but that I think Jonathon Brooks should be used a lot in this regard, even on Sunday. I know that he's not going to play a crap ton of snaps, but I also don't think he's going to see like very little action. James Cook had 5 receptions on 6 targets for the Bills. Now, it only netted 7 yards. It was ineffective as hell. But that was more on, if you go watch that game, it was more of the situation that you see them being put in. And it was good plays by the defense. But where Jonathon Brooks, I think, is terrific, and where I think he is better than Chuba Hubbard, and at least in a theoretical standpoint, is at a screenplay. He is absolutely terrific of having the vision, the patience, and then the wiggle even at 6 foot, 216 pounds, to make guys miss and take things for the home run. And I think that is going to be, that's a simulated rushing attempt, essentially, is what those screenplays need to be for this Panthers offense on Sunday, because you're not going to have a lot of success going up the middle. And I like that they're playing Cade Mays over Brady Christensen, because I think that his physicality lends much better to going up against Chris Jones than watching Brady Christensen try to go up against him. Cade Mays had some success against Dexter Lawrence, and Dexter Lawrence is a large, talented individual, right? And he neutralized him on a good amount of plays. So I think that makes a lot of sense, but I don't think that you're going to make a ton of hay running straight up the gut here. You're going to have to get some outside the tackle stuff. Our outside zone scheme, I think, can work. I think that with Icky back, that lends a huge boost in that department too. Robert Hunt coming out there and going that left side with Icky, running those outside, those off tackle runs. I think that that's where you can try to target at least a little bit. The tight end. Can I say one thing on Brooks quick while we're talking about it? I think this is the one time, and I'm almost reluctant to say this, where Canales can get cute with these running backs. You don't have Miles Sanders anymore. That's not a guy I want to get cute with. You can get cute with Jonathon Brooks because he adds another element. So you're making me laugh, Ricky. But that is a guy where you can add in some flair to the offense, and I feel like it'll actually pan out, because they've tried that in the past with Miles and it hasn't worked out. But I think Brooks is special enough. You can do things like that. And I do agree with you. I don't know. I know these are practice clips, but seeing some of the Brooks going out on a swing pass and just seeing the way he moves, I really think if they can take advantage of that, and I think this is the chance where you can put both him and Chuba on the field at once and really create some confusion for the defense. So that's kind of where I agree with that. I agree. But Bryson, did you hear what I heard there? Because what I really heard there is, I don't have a problem with donuts. I just have a specific kind of donut that I enjoy. That's what it sounded like. Sure. But I don't disagree with him. Bryson, what are your thoughts on that though, man? Like, Jonathon Brooks, I don't think is going to get like a large allocation of snaps here or responsibility. But do you think that he at least sees the field enough to like make a real impact in this game?
Yeah, I hope so. This is a guy himself who said for probably 2 or 3 weeks that he's ready in interviews, one-on-one, and he's ready for a small workload or a large workload, whatever they want him to do. So they've been slow feeding him for sure and trying to, I guess, quote unquote, be smart with his return. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a lot of Jonathon Brooks, and they kind of roll with Chuba, which is not the worst thing. Chuba Hubbard's a good back. We talked about, but yeah, I think if you want to better your chances to win this game, I wouldn't be mad at some cute plays that Curtis was talking about involving Jonathon Brooks. Definitely an upgrade from Miles Sanders being involved in those plays. But you were talking about screen passes, and my mind was going, but like I was confused, because are you trying to tell me that screen passes with Adam Thielen and I know Ian Thomas is on IR, but are those not the guys you want on screen passes?
I know it sounds crazy, man, and I knew that was going to catch your attention. You don't miss a thing, Bryson, and I knew that you were going to sit there and you'd be like, "You're telling me 80 isn't the guy that we should be looking for these quick outlet plays?" Yeah, no, Bryson said Ian Thomas. He cursed on your show, Curtis. You're going to have to fucking talk to him later. No, but it is, though, man. And I'm not sure how often they'll do it. And maybe it's not even this week, right? But Jonathon Brooks does just add such an element there, man, that I love seeing out of him in college. And also his pass protection is going to allow him to be that third down back as well. So Miles Sanders was getting all those looks at third down. There shouldn't be a reason, even when Miles comes back, and this is no slight, man. I'm not trying to be shitty to Miles while he's dealing with a real significant injury. But like, there should be no way that Miles sees that field on third down as long as Jonathon Brooks is healthy again, because he is going to give you very solid pass pro, and he is a legitimate pass catcher. Now, his route running as a pass catcher isn't something that I'm heralding right now. That's got work to do. But as an outlet receiver, he is absolutely viable, and he's got terrific contact balance to break through tackles and then that home run ability, man. It's not the speed of like Devin Achane or whatever. It's not that kind of breakaway. It is the vision, and then you'll see what he does a lot too, man. That's so intelligent. When he does get space, he angles that thing to the sideline, man, and he makes it as difficult as possible for a defender to get to him. He makes them take the furthest angle. He's a very smart football player, and I love that out of football players, man. I love the guys that just have a really good understanding. Sorry, Jonathon Mingo, but I do really love guys that have a good understanding of the game.
So, Ricky, tell us about Buffalo. What did they do to beat these Chiefs?
Yeah, so it was the emphasis on trying to get the running backs involved, right, to kind of like not neutralize the pass rush that they're bringing, but give them a different thing that they have to account for. If they know that you're willing to drop these things off on the flat to the running backs, they have to account for that, and that kind of changes the spacing of the defense. But the second part of it that I was about to bring up is the tight end, and this is something that people do know about the Chiefs, is that that's an area of their defense that is usually at least somewhat vulnerable. Jatavion Sanders has started to turn a corner a little bit here in Carolina. Dawson Knox was filling in. And yeah, that's great, man. Like, what a thing, right? Like, our 4th round rookie tight end is turning a corner. Impressive stuff. But Dawson Knox was filling in for Dalton Kincaid last week, and he had four catches for 40 yards on 6 targets. And that may not seem like, oh, man, right home about. But the offense wasn't exactly dynamic, dude. Outside of like 2 or 3 big plays, they were dinking and dunking their way across this defense, right? Like, you have to. The main thing that I took away from that Bills game, and what the Panthers are going to be really hard pressed to replicate, but they're going to have to replicate, is when you get an opportunity against this defense, you got to make it count. Because if you miss opportunities against this defense, you only get so many of them. And the thing that we have talked about in Carolina for over a year and a half now is how it is so much more noticeable when we miss shots and when we miss big plays, because we don't have a whole lot of opportunities for them. And so especially against this Steve Spagnuolo defense, man, imperative not to miss those slight overthrows, not to miss those down the sideline catches, and not to drop balls. You have got to make the most of every single opportunity if you want to stay in this game, or else it could be curtains really fast at Bank of America Stadium on Sunday.
Well, and to your note, and this now that you mentioned some things about Buffalo, it makes me remember what happened on Sunday, and that's Curtis Samuel. He came alive in this game for Buffalo, and I feel like there is going to be a guy we're not thinking about right now that needs to come alive in this game.
Devin Tompkins.
That maybe they're overlooking. Yeah, as a guy who can make some plays. Adam Thielen coming back, we're thinking about him, and Coker and Excel, but like a guy who can step up against his defense that we're really not expecting to, because I think that could play dividends down the stretch in this game for them. But I think you nailed it by saying, like, when you get an opportunity versus a Super Bowl, the Super Bowl defending champs, you have to capitalize on every single one, or damn near every single one, if you want to be in this game. You can't have 2 drops from your receivers. You can't have Bryce missing Coker on that 3rd down late in the game. Like, those opportunities, you only get so many. You're only going to get a couple against this very stout defense. But when you do get them, you need to hit them. And this made me think of my other point. This is kind of going back and harping on Dave Canales, but I feel like Canales admitted to kind of holding back on Bryce Young. He had said he needs to work on giving him more deep shots. And it's like, you're literally telling us that, like, you weren't giving this dude the opportunity. And I think that is another thing they're going to have to try to implement. And I tweeted this out the other day. I think this game is as big for Canales as it is for Bryce Young, because you're going against a top defense in the league. And what are you going to do as a play caller in this game to give your guys opportunities? And I feel like this is the point where he needs to open up. And I'm not saying open it up and not run the ball. I'm saying open it up, take decisive shots when you need to take them and capitalize on them. And then obviously, like we talked about, like, take advantage of your 2nd round pick. Take advantage of Jonathan Brooks coming back. You said you're not going to – Canales is it's clear he is big on he's going to bring guys back when they're fully healthy. He made that clear the last couple days and weeks. Like Adam Thielen, he doesn't want to have a pitch count on him. He doesn't want to have a pitch count on Brooks. So these guys, when they come back, they should be ready to roll, no hesitation, because he's made that clear in some of his pressers. So let this thing fly. I mean, let this playbook come alive in this game, because you're 3-7 against a team that more than likely is overlooking you. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping the Chiefs are overlooking this game, and this is going to be a breeze and cakewalk in Charlotte, and we're going to go on to week 13 and be 10-1 or whatever their record is right now. So that's the hope. But yeah, they need to open this thing up, and Canales really needs to take advantage. And I'm sorry, I'm talking in circles at this point, but those are the things that need for this offense to flourish against a very stout defense.
I like that we at least brought up Devin Tompkins. I know that's one of Bryson's guys that Bryson loved watching in training camp. One note on him, we've seen Canales implement that sharp motion, and I know people think it's funny when I call it a sharp motion, but that's exactly what Mike McDaniel and the guys in Miami were calling it. They didn't call it that full sprint motion. They called it a sharp motion, and it's for the exact reason that it sounds like, because it's sudden and unexpected, and it's an exit. But we've seen Devin Tompkins be run out on that motion a few times the past couple weeks, and it could be exactly what we kind of spoke about with Sean Payton and Andy Reid about putting something on film but not executing it fully. Maybe it's for this exact purpose, right? Maybe it's either for the eye candy, and then you have XL running on a deep crosser or something like that, where you get him out in space when a safety bites and follows Devin and the speed option. Or maybe it's also built in of, hey, Bryce, you see him get behind that defender? Chuck it, dude. Go for it. That's the chunk play that we've got to hit.
I agree with Carter here. I do think they need to take a shot early in this game to set the tone for the rest of the game, that they're not playing around and they're coming to play today. Like I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I know we've been harping, stubborn with the run too, but I do think early on, if you take your shot, it's going to set things up. And, who knows? You might not connect. Maybe you connect. Maybe you get a pass interference, and that kind of jump starts of what you're trying to get. But I do think this is the game you cannot hold back on. Take the handcuffs off. Take the training wheels off. Like Alex said, you're playing the big dogs now. Let's see what you got. What are you made of? So, anything to add to that, Bryson?
No, you guys are killing it. I think. Look, I mean, realistically, I think if this game's close, that's a win in my book for the Carolina Panthers. I hope they're competitive, but overall, I think when you take a step back and look at who you're playing, talent level wise across the board, they're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. And I think this is a good barometer for, okay, the Panthers are on a 2-game winning streak. They played a bad Saints team. They played a bad Giants team. Let's see where Bryce is. Let's see where this running game is. The defense has taken minor steps forward. Maybe they can force a couple punts versus this offense. I think it's a really good gauge just to see overall where they're at. I know it's, not the best opponent for that because it's Patrick Mahomes, and, he does that to a lot of people, embarrasses them. But, I think overall, I hope you go to the game, Curtis, and have a good time. Tickets are ridiculously expensive. I don't know if Taylor Swift's going to be there or not, but, I think just the attraction of Patrick Mahomes has raised prices significantly. I feel like there's going to be a lot of Chiefs fans there because the Chiefs have garnered a lot of support across the country because of winning. That's what happens when your team wins. You get a lot of bandwagon fans. But yeah, I mean, my hope is just that it's competitive and that it's not, after the first quarter, the game's over and I'm just watching to see if Bryce completes a decent pass. And, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most in this game.
Ideally, I mean, all of us would want this is like the Packers game of last year. Like,
yeah,
toe to toe, score after score, and they're responding. And I mean, that would be the hope, even if it does, ends up with an L. I think that would show some life and some more confidence in Bryce Young and what he can do against one of the best teams in the NFL.
Just look like you belong. Like that's what you're looking for here. Look like you belong, and that it's not a different, weight class in this game.
All right, let's get to our bets, and then we'll get to predictions here. So, Ricky, did you take a shot already? Or I don't know if you took a shot or you're not doing a shot. I don't know.
I haven't taken a shot already. If I absolutely have to, I will. But
nah, we're not going to make Ricky. He chugged a beer. He chugged a beer.
All right, so here's our bets.
I'll do a shot next episode.
Here's our bets this week. Here's our parlay through Bet 365. So I'll start. I'm going Nico Collins. I honestly didn't do too much research. I know he's hit this a couple times this year. Obviously, he's coming back from injury. You guys didn't see the first play of the game this past week. I mean, he ripped off a 70-yarder on the first play. It was called back by holding. I think without a doubt this guy can get to that point in the second game. He still had in his first game back 54 yards, I believe. So I'm banking on him and CJ Stroud. They're playing the Tennessee Titans. I feel fairly confident he can get to this level in his second game, just based on what I saw last week and the opportunities he got, because he did get a lot of them. So I'm definitely taking the over on this one, 71.5 against the Titans. Bryson, George Pickens, we swapped here. I had Pickens last week. What do you like with him?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge I'm on fire with my picks. I started off very rough this season, but I've had a good bounce back. So in this game in particular, they're playing the Cleveland Browns. I believe is it the Thursday night game? I think it is.
It is.
The Cleveland Browns in back-to-back weeks have given up 89 receiving yards to Marcus Valdez-Scantling. And then the week prior to that, they gave up like 114 yards to Quentin Johnston. George Pickens is a very good receiver that is involved at a high level in this offense. And I believe with Jameis Winston on the other side, who really likes to throw the ball. And he's not been terrible for the Browns. I believe that this game is going to involve a lot of passing from the Steelers as well. And I think, obviously, George Pickens being the number one option with 60 receiving yards over, I don't think it's going to be that hard to hit. I believe the Browns ranked 24th in the league in pass defense. So they're not a very good defense in regards to defending the pass. So I think 60 yards, the over on that is a pretty safe bet for George Pickens in this game.
All right, since Alex giving me shit, I got to defend myself now here. So of 5 of 6 games Nico Collins has been featured this year, he has hit 70-plus in 5 of 6 of those. And his lowest of 5 of 6 of those was 78. So give me every single bit of that. He gets targets of 10-plus more in half of those games. I mean, this is CJ Stroud's guy without a doubt, and you're playing a piss-poor Tennessee team, and I will take every single bit of this week. So there you go, Alex. All right, Ricky, go ahead.
The only thing, Bryson, that worried me about that game that you picked right there is I learned today weather seems to be a thing for that game. They're calling for, and it's, I still think that you're got a good bet there. So I'm not trying to discourage that, but I just learned this today that they're calling for 30 degrees and either rain or snow for portions of that game.
What game?
I did not know that.
The Browns-Steelers game. And that may be why that over is so low though, which still may work in your favor though, because if it's not like downpour or precipitation the entire duration of that game, there's going to be some opportunities to score. They're going to throw the ball there, right? So that may work in your favor that you got a low line because of the weather.
Man, we're really selling these picks tonight. Jesus Christ.
No, that's a good one. What do you mean that's a good one? All right, never mind. Don't listen to it. Hey, you know what though? If Ricky's disagreeing with it, it's probably a good thing because I can't fucking hit a bet to save my life anyways, and Bryson's on fire. So follow Bryson. Just trust him. He's got it. All right, so I took Jahmyr Gibbs going over 67.5 rushing yards. They play the Indianapolis Colts on the road. The Detroit Lions are 5-0 on the road. Gibbs on the road has gone under that only twice, and each time it was under, he went 12 for 63 or 11 for 65. I think that in this game, what you see is when you look at the last 5 games, right, for the Colts, what they allowed on the ground, 91 to the Jets, 135 to the Bills, 133 to the Vikings, 96 to the Texans, and 188 to the Dolphins. You look at the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Vikings, those are the 2 that I look at the most there, or the 3 that I look at the most. They rush from different areas. It's not a single player, right? The Texans, you have Joe Mixon. The Jets, you have Breece Hall. It is very one-dimensional. The Texans also, it would have been like 104 yards or 110 yards, but they had negative 14 yards to Stroud for like his, end of the game, kneeling the ball type shit. I think that what sold me the most on this when I did my research is I expect this to kind of be a little bit of a blowout, but I think that Anthony Richardson has a little bit of momentum. This is at home for him. I think that he tries to keep this close, which means that the Lions are going to keep playing their players. And the good thing about the Lions, even if they're blowing the roof off of you, they just keep coming at you. Dan Campbell, he says he likes to eat kneecaps. He also likes to just shatter confidence. Like, he likes to absolutely break his opponents. So he's going to keep on going. But here's my favorite thing about this. The Colts have surrendered 48 rushes of 10-plus yards, and that's tied for most in the league. 3.22 yards allowed per rush after contact. Gibbs is phenomenal after first contact, and he's one of 3 NFL players this season that has eclipsed 22 miles per hour. And when he did it on a 70-yard touchdown run. So you know what? Give him one opportunity at the place where the Colts struggle the worst in the entire league, and he can hit that bet in one run. And if not, if they allow the most 10 yards in the way, hey, you give him 12 carries, man, and he hits 6 of them, we're set. So I really like that bet this week. I feel good about it. Jahmyr Gibbs and that Detroit Lions team is literally running all over everybody.
So this is our parlay this week. These are numbers through, or the odds through Bet365. So if you are interested, you can sign up for a sports book near you. It's signupexpert.com/Panthers. It'll take you to our landing page. Click on the link to the sports book you want to join, sign up, and start betting. This is the parlay we're rolling with for week 12. We're hoping to hit all 3 this week. Fingers crossed. Bryson's been on a run. I've went 1 in a row. And Ricky is trying to climb back up that hill. So hopefully we get
1 in a row. What is 1 in a row?
Did he just call a 1-win streak?
Hey, when you're a Panthers fan, a 1 win is a streak.
It's remarkable.
So yeah, let's hope for it. And Alex, good luck. I know you've been tailing some of our parlays, so we do appreciate that. In all seriousness, we really do. And if you guys are interested, I'll post this tomorrow. We don't have a Thursday game, do we? Or is Bryson's a Thursday night game?
Yeah, mine's a
Bryson's
Thursday.
Oh, you are. So we're on that trend. Like, I feel like every week we have someone on the Thursday night game. So
it's hard. It's hard to find player prop bets for Sunday games on Wednesday morning. They don't post them, man. It's tough.
Yeah, you're limited. So we're rolling with what we got. And I'll post this in the morning. If you guys are tailing, please interact with our tweet when we put it out tomorrow. And we'd like to see, if you're placing a bet, screenshot it. We would appreciate it. And we'll keep this train going for the rest of the year. But we do thank you guys. Let's do predictions now. Ricky, let's start with you. Who you got in this one? Give me a score.
Oh God, I hate this portion of the show. I want so badly, like really so badly, to think about the Carolina Panthers just coming out and being like, you know what, man? Screw you guys, right? 2 times defending champs, but you're coming to our house. We're on a 2-game win streak. You lost. Like, you're the coldest team in the league to us. But I'm gonna use a little bit more of my head than my heart today. I'm going to look at it and say 33-13 Kansas City. I know it's disgusting, Bryson, and I feel awful saying it, but you know what? If I'm wrong and they surpass it, I'm a happy camper. But I am very nervous, man. The more that I watch of that Kansas City defense, they are an elite defense. And what they do really well with their discipline is something that the Panthers struggle with very much on capitalizing on teams' mistakes and willing to give up yardage. They don't do that. So it is going to be on this Panthers offense to manufacture their own yardage, and that's a tall task. So 33-13, I'm going to go Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think it's going to be entirely on Bryce Young, the lackluster offensive production. I think a lot of it stems from making our team extremely one-dimensional, taking away the run game.
Bryson, what do you got?
Yeah, as well as being on fire with picks, just want to mention last week I predicted the game exactly as it went, 20-17, Panthers won. And the week before I predicted Panthers win by 1 point, and they won by a point versus the Saints. This week I am
basically
not so
he's their Swami.
this week, I am not so confident. So the Chiefs are favored by 11, I believe, on the sports books. I think that they cover that versus the Panthers pretty easily. I don't feel like it's going to be a super competitive game, unfortunately, just based off of the Panthers' history versus the Chiefs' history. We talked about the defense. I had the Chiefs winning 31, Panthers scoring 17. Their Chiefs win by 14. They cover the 11 points. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence going into this game. Maybe they surprise the world, but I don't know. It's like a 1 in 100 chance, probably.
Yeah. So looking at the Chiefs' schedule up to this point, shockingly, they have not surpassed. They've hit 30 points, and that's it. They have not gone over that this year. I'm actually kind of shocked by that. But it's going to happen this week. It's really going to happen this week. Man, I'm going to go. I really hope I'm wrong because I'm going to this game this weekend. I'm going to say Chiefs 42, Panthers 10.
Oh,
and absolute obliteration.
Man.
And this, I really hope I'm wrong on this, but
me too.
If Carolina gets blown out, I honestly think it is the last time we see Bryce Young, which is pathetic to even think about, to even discuss.
You're making me sick.
But the coaching staff and what they have shown in the guy they invested so much in, it is clear they have all the confidence in the world in Andy Dalton. But Bryce Young has put them between a rock and a hard place of winning the last 2 weeks, and they have no choice but to play him right now. And I hate that, but that's what the reality looks like for me and my perspective of what I've seen out of Dave Canales, and I hate it. I hope Bryce Young shows out and he's the starter again, because I think he should be the starter the rest of the season. We've already talked about it. But man, I have a real bad feeling after this game, the way Canales has treated this whole QB situation up to this point. And it sucks because I really think they're fucking up an opportunity here, but we'll see what happens.
That score prediction was like going to like a Russian oncologist and finding out that you have cancer, or finding out that you beat cancer. Either one. It doesn't matter if it's a good or a bad prognosis. Like if Curtis is telling you about it, he's like, it'll be 42-10 and they're going to lose and you're fine. You don't have cancer, but you'll die eventually anyways. Like, holy shit. That was classic Curtis, man. Good for you, dude. You really leaned into it.
Hey, I was wrong last week. I don't know what I predicted last week, to be totally honest with you. Bryson probably knows. I don't know.
I think you predicted the Giants win,
right?
Yeah. I don't know what the score was, though. I can't remember.
No, I don't remember your score.
But anyway, yeah, I'll be going to the game this weekend. It looks like Bland. Shout out to Bland. I think Bland's coming up for the game from Texas.
Awesome. Matt will be there.
Matt's gonna be there. Our buddy from Kansas City. He mentioned a Chiefs jersey. I said, you better not be wearing a Chiefs jersey. No, he isn't. But he's like, I guess he's got a Chiefs jersey. I don't know. But anyway, I'm excited for the game this weekend. I will be wearing the Bryce Young jersey because you never know when it's going to be the last. It's really pathetic that we even have to question that at this point with where we're at. But yeah, I'm excited. Roaring Riot, I'll be there at the tailgate. If you guys aren't a member of them, I'd recommend you doing that. Their drinks are cheap. Food's questionable, but the tailgates are fun. So if you're out there, say hi. Don't be a stranger. You know what I look like if you watch the pod. So I really wish Ricky and Bryson were there. I know that the tickets are outrageous. I don't blame you for not wanting to go.
We'll see what
with the
Sunday
way
looks
they
like.
are.
Maybe I come up for the Roaring Riot tailgate and just go home.
I
We'll
would
see.
appreciate that. I would like to see you.
Ricky,
yeah, we got
question.
just a
What, Bryson?
Oh, go ahead.
Would you be down to watch it at a bar with me if I come down?
Now you're
There we
talking my
go.
language, Bryson.
Yeah, I
Now
might
you're
do
talking
that.
my language.
That's
So
a good
look,
idea.
You guys,
we could
hold
go.
on. You
We
guys
could go.
come to
We
the
could go.
tailgate.
So look, we
Yeah.
go to the tailgate,
Yeah.
and then we just go to we got Thomas Davis's bars not far down the street. We could hit Thomas Davis's bar up. There's always Clutch Poorhouse directly behind the stadium. We could just go over to Clutch. Let's have a conversation after this episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
And just a teaser, we at some point here we're going to be getting together for a game, all three of us. And we haven't really talked about this, but we'll talk about it live for a little bit. We might have a little pre-game or post-game show coming up in December for you guys. I know everyone has been wanting us to do more shows than just one a week. We might be doing 2 that week coming up. I believe it's for, is it the Philly game? The Bucks
December
game?
8th, I believe. Yep.
So for that Philadelphia game, we might be doing a live show prior to that game or post game. We haven't decided yet. We'll talk about it, but just giving you guys a little bit of teaser for that coming up. But yeah, let's hope Carolina puts up a fight this weekend. If they win, man, we might have to light the Charlotte on fire that day.
Yeah. We'll turn Mid Street into Franklin Street and start jumping over burning tables and shit, you know?
Oh, there's Matt. Matt came alive. Matt, I
will not be wearing a Chiefs jersey.
Good on you,
We love
Matt.
you, Matt. Matt, I'll see you Sunday, and hopefully we see you guys on Sunday. I'm liking this plan.
Yeah.
So we'll let you guys go. We'll see you guys next week, and keep pounding. And hopefully we get a dub this weekend against the Super Bowl champs.